after the game, you got this from Robert Griffin III. There you go. Buda Baker's the Browns lead. DK running them down is Lamar after pooping. After pooping. So, God bless it. God bless it.
Pooping.
I'm watching the Scott Van Pelt post-game show, and Scott's going to join us in this hour. Okay? I'm watching the post-game show. Lisa Salters, who's been a dear friend of Susie's and mine for quite some time. We go way back. She's interviewing Lamar. She asked him, what did you have left in the tank after you came out of the locker room? And I thought to myself, I don't know if Lisa's on Twitter or anything like that, or if that was a little wink and a nod or anything like that. But my gosh. And you know, you could see how Lamar has the adoration of his team. They were all coming up to him and slapping him on the back and just celebrating. I mean,
John Harbaugh was
what a
in there,
dynamite finish from him. And again, he said and the Ravens said he was cramping, which does make sense here because of how long he was in the locker room. That he had an IV, and it was an IV. That's what he told. He told Lisa Salters he had an IV, and he had to take the IV because he was cramping badly. And in all seriousness here, this guy did have COVID-19 for crying out loud 2+ weeks ago. And as Steve Levy mentioned on the broadcast, he said he slept for 10 straight days. So, you know, it would be understandable if the guy has some issues staying hydrated and not cramping in the middle of a big game. But he did come back and looked him. That's one hell of an IV. I'll have what he's having, to use the phrase from When Harry Met Sally. Okay, I'll have what he's having. So after the game, though, because, you know, guilty as charged, many of us on Twitter and
it was great.
In the Twitterverse were wondering again, maybe it wasn't cramping. And the question was put point blank to Lamar afterwards.
Just to clarify, you didn't have to use the bathroom or anything in the back, right? You know, there was a lot of talk on social media that you were kind of like jogging, like you had to use the bathroom or something.
No, I was cramping. I ain't putting a Paul Pierce. I didn't put a Paul Pierce. I was cramping.
I mean,
okay,
Paul Pierce.
Now for those who might need a refresher, pulling a Paul Pierce, what does that mean? Let's flash back to the 2008 Finals, Game 1. Boston Celtics. Paul Pierce goes down in a heap underneath one of the baskets.
Yeah, it looked like all of his ACLs were broken.
Right.
Everything.
Out comes a wheelchair.
Yep.
And wheelchaired him off into the locker room. And we're thinking, forget about Paul coming back in this game. Forget about him coming back in this series. Like, what's going to happen for Paul Pierce's future? He's wheelchaired off of the court into the locker room in an NBA Finals Game 1. I mean, what a finals-altering injury, if not potentially career-altering injury for Paul Pierce, who then suddenly comes running out of the locker room like nothing happened.
And it hits a huge shot immediately.
Huge. Cut now to the 2019 NBA Finals. Paul Pierce on the set, live on ESPN, says he has a confession to make that in the 2008 Finals, he had to go to the bathroom, which is why he was wheelchaired out. Because he said something had, quote unquote, happened, requiring him to get some assistance to leave the court. He fully admitted, I had to poop, everybody. Don't use that as a drop, if you will, figuratively. And so, again, his reaction to the question, he furrows his eyebrows like he's never heard this before. And many people are thinking, because they are in the know of what everybody else was thinking, that is Lamar being a little bit less than honest and play acting like he's never heard before the concept that he might have had to be going to the bathroom and not get some sort of intravenous help to get his fluids going, to get the cramping out, and to get back on the field. And I will say this. We know on this show firsthand how Lamar Jackson has, as a default mechanism, just flat out being himself, telling the truth, doesn't have a bone in his body that would shade the truth. Because he was on this show 3 weeks ago, and we asked him point blank, on this program, hey, it seems like things are coming tougher for your offense this year. What do you attribute that to? And part of his answer was, well, some of the defensive players we're hearing are calling our plays out before we're snapping the ball. And that's Lamar that's just Lamar talking. That's just him being himself. I don't think this kid has any ability in his body to shade the truth. I really don't. So let's take him at his word. He was getting fluids, not, if you will, vacating anything but his presence from the game until he could get back out there. And when he did, man, did he come through for a team that needed it. Oh, my God, did the Ravens need to win that football game last night. Because now, if we do, in fact, have the 2019 MVP of the league entering the arena for the first time in 2020 with a significant wind at his back. I didn't mean that.
You are on fire right now.
They take on Jacksonville, who's starting Gardner Minshew again. They take on the Giants, who look like they turned into a pumpkin, and then they finish up at Cincinnati. That right there, people, that right there are 3 more wins and a 5-game win streak for the 2020 Baltimore Ravens since finally playing that rescheduled Thanksgiving game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And what that would do for the Baltimore Ravens, because that would be 2 more conference wins, which they need. They would finish 7-5 in conference and 11-5 overall. That should be well enough to make the playoffs and potentially set up another visit to Pittsburgh, which had a huge sigh of relief when the Ravens won, because that keeps Pittsburgh 2 games in front of Cleveland. Cleveland would have to win out, including beating Pittsburgh in the final week of the season at home. They'd have to win out and hope that the Steelers lose out in order to get in front of Pittsburgh in the win column, as opposed to just them being just 1 game behind them. And unfortunately for the Bills, they're just going to have to take care of clinching for themselves. The Ravens' loss would have clinched a spot for Buffalo after 14 weeks. Instead, it's just going to have to be on them to do it this week. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.